This company generates tens of billions in revenue from customers that tend to keep spending, even in tough economic environments. To understand Lockheed Martin, you have to go back over a century. The company we know today came out of a 1995 merger between two aerospace giants, Lockheed Corporation and Martin Marietta. Lockheed traces back to 1912, when the Lockheed brothers started an early aircraft company that became Lockheed Corporation in 1926. Over the next few decades, it built a reputation on cutting-edge aircraft through World War II and the Cold War. Martin Marietta was a different animal: missiles, space systems, defense technology. Put them together and you get one of the largest defense contractors ever assembled. But size wasn't the real story. The real story was specialization. Lockheed Martin got wired into U.S. defense infrastructure in a way most companies never do. The United States Department of Defense wasn't just a customer, it was the system everything revolved around. And that relationship would become its biggest advantage. Over time, Lockheed built systems that are hard to replicate, not because of patents or branding, but because of time. Decades of classified R&D, decades of iteration. You can't shortcut that. And eventually, one program came to define the modern company: the F-35 fighter jet. Lockheed Martin has been in the S&P 500 for years. It's not a newcomer, and it's not a company that cycles in and out. That kind of staying power matters. The S&P 500 isn't just a growth list, it's a filter. Companies that stay tend to have something durable underneath. What Lockheed offers is a specific kind of durability: government-backed demand. Defense budgets don't behave like normal spending. They move slower. They get debated, delayed, reshaped, but they rarely disappear. When recessions hit, consumers pull back. Companies cut costs. But governments don't just stop funding national security. That's the difference. And it shows up in the numbers over time. Revenue doesn't spike the way tech does, but it doesn't collapse either. It grinds forward. For investors, that means exposure to something that runs on a different clock entirely. Lockheed Martin doesn't sell to you or me. It sells to governments, the U.S. Department of Defense first, then allied nations. That one detail changes how everything works. The core of the business is aeronautics, built around the F-35. It's the most expensive weapons system ever built, but the real story isn't the price tag. It's the life cycle. When a country buys the F-35, that's the start, not the end. Training, maintenance, software updates, spare parts, all of it stretches out for decades. The jet stays in service for 30, 40 years. Sometimes longer. That's not a sale. That's a relationship. Then there's missiles and fire control. Precision weapons, air defense systems, things like HIMARS. These aren't one-off purchases either. Stockpiles need replenishing. Systems get upgraded. Demand comes in waves, usually tied to what's happening in the world. Rotary and mission systems covers helicopters, radar, naval tech. The Black Hawk alone has been in service for decades across multiple countries. And every system like that comes with ongoing service work. Lockheed also builds satellites, missile warning systems, spacecraft. It has worked with NASA, but more importantly, it's tied into defense-related space infrastructure. That line between space and defense keeps getting thinner. What really separates Lockheed, though, is how the money comes in. Multi-year contracts. Sometimes cost-plus, sometimes fixed. Backed by government budgets. Most companies are trying to predict demand quarter to quarter. Lockheed is often working off contracts that were signed years ago. The risks are real. Defense spending is still political. Priorities shift. Budgets stall. Programs get delayed. And when that happens, Lockheed feels it, even if the long-term demand is still there. Then there's the F-35 itself. It's a strength, but also a concentration risk. A large chunk of revenue runs through that one program. If something goes wrong, technical issues, pricing disputes, reduced orders, it's not a small problem. There's also the nature of the contracts. Fixed-price deals can go wrong fast if costs move the wrong way. When that happens, Lockheed absorbs it. And competition is always there. Northrop Grumman, Boeing, these aren't small players. Winning matters. Losing matters more. There's another layer to it, and it's less comfortable to talk about. Lockheed benefits when the world feels unstable. That doesn't mean conflict is predictable. It isn't. But rising tension tends to translate into higher defense spending. If things calm down globally for a long stretch, demand doesn't disappear, but it slows. Now zoom out. Defense budgets are rising again in multiple countries. Not all at once, not evenly, but the direction is there. Governments are modernizing systems, replacing older equipment, building out capabilities they didn't prioritize before. Lockheed is already inside that system. The F-35 still has room to grow. More countries are joining the program. And each one that joins isn't just buying jets, they're stepping into that long-term ecosystem of upgrades and support. Warfare is shifting too. Less focus on large ground forces, more on precision systems, coordination, speed, missile defense, integrated networks, surveillance. Lockheed is already building in those areas. Space is another piece. Not speculative, not distant, already happening. Satellites, communications, early warning systems. It's becoming part of defense infrastructure, and Lockheed is positioned there early. And underneath all of this, the cash flow stays consistent. That gives the company options. Dividends, buybacks, reinvestment. It doesn't need perfect conditions to keep operating. Lockheed Martin doesn't follow consumer trends. It doesn't move with hype cycles. It doesn't need to. It runs on long-term contracts, government relationships, and the reality that defense spending doesn't go to zero. There are real risks, budget pressure, reliance on a few major programs, execution on large contracts. But there's also a structure here that's hard to replicate. At its core, Lockheed Martin is a bet on one idea. That governments will keep paying for national security, and that companies already inside that system will keep getting the work. So the question is, do you see Lockheed Martin as a steady compounder over time? Or is it too tied to forces no company can control? Let me know your thoughts, and what stock you want to see next. Thank you.